Okay, y'all, I'm trying with this light. I am trying. I raised it up. Okay, I can see it. If I raise this up a little higher, we might be in business. Okay, maybe that's the secret. Trying to learn how to work with these lights. Hello, welcome everybody. My name is Halana Black. I am here to give you a quick video today on how travel enhances your writing. Let me put my notes in front of me. How travel enhances your writing. So, what I do when I like to do my writing, or one of the reasons that I really enjoy traveling while writing at the same time, is that I get to share stories from my travels and what it is that I've learned. Whether it's writing, I'm writing things for my personal self, or I'm actually writing something for publication. Um, well, I'll tell you in a few minutes one of the personal essays that I'm writing, and I'm actually looking to publish it somewhere. And if not, if no one decides to publish it, I'll just sort of find a way to be able to share it on my own someplace else. Um, but this is a new thing for me to be able to share some of my personal stories. I'm finally at a stage where I can write things about what I've experienced the last few years and and share it with other people. So, how does travel enhance your writing? So, if you're new to me, my name is Halana Black. I'm a freelance writer who's been traveling for the last 5 years. I started off my travels in uh, Thailand, and I currently live in the country of Rwanda in East Africa. I've been here for the last, 2.5 years. And unfortunately, my time here will be closing soon, and I'll be moving on to a couple of other new countries that I'm really looking forward to. Um, so, yeah, let's go ahead and get to the purpose of the video. How travel enhances your writing. Number one, travel has always given me more stories to tell. You have more stories to tell because when you travel to other countries, you're just bound to have experiences that you would not have had you just stayed at home. Now, I have a lot of international experience, relatively, depending on who you're talking to. But travel could be, if you live, grew up in your hometown and you moved, you went to college in another state, or maybe you got a job in another state, or maybe you went a few towns over and you had some different experiences there. Travel doesn't necessarily mean that you went far. It just means that you're putting yourself in a new environment that's different from what it is that you maybe have grown up in. So, um, for me, college was, a significant experience growing up in an African American household. And, I lived in a very small African American community. And then being thrown into an environment where there were significantly less Black people. That was a culture shock. That's a story to tell. Another story from my personal life, I was a Peace Corps volunteer. I've got hella stories I could share from that time in my life in my early 20s. Um, I was stung by a scorpion, greatest pain of my life. Got to celebrate Lunar New Year in Vietnam, and participating in doing um, karaoke with the family that I lived with when I was in Vietnam, or my experience with learning how to become a runner here in Rwanda. Those are all really great stories for you to be able to tell. So when you travel, you simply have more stories to tell, and those stories that you have to experience will inevitably make your writing so much better. What's next is that travel makes your life lessons more relatable. This is particularly I'm telling you this from a nonfiction perspective because I don't really work. Well, I won't say that I don't work in I don't necessarily work in fiction writing, but um, I'm coming from the perspective of telling stories from um, the perspective of a nonfiction writer. And as a nonfiction writer, I always want to be able to share life lessons from my own personal life or things that other people have shared with me. And what I've learned in the process of becoming a better storyteller is that number one, no one wants to listen to lectures. No one wants to listen to your lectures, right? So, adding in some vivid storytelling elements from your travels helps you to be able to capture, um, it helps you to capture an audience, whether you're writing fiction or nonfiction. And, fiction stories, of course, can also teach a lesson. Of course, there's, you know, um, uh, fables and all sorts of traditional storytelling, particularly African in the African tradition of storytelling. These are known for being able to share lessons with other people. So that's important. Um, so your travel life makes the life lessons you want to tell in your stories much more vivid. Number three is that your travel life will provoke introspection. Introspection, meaning you get more opportunities to be able to think about what it is that you know, what it is that you believe. Um, yeah, what it is that you know and what it is that you believe. You get to figure out, you get to start to ask yourself questions about your experiences and what they mean to you. You get to attach meaning in the way that you want to these particular experiences. And in your storytelling, you might want to use it as a way to be able to compare what it is that you thought you knew previously and what it is that you learn now as a result of your travel experience. So, as an example, I talked about a few minutes earlier about um, what it is about. I always lose track of my thought. But my first visit to a Buddhist temple when I was in Thailand, I grew up in a Christian family for the most part, even though Christianity never really felt comfortable in my spirit. It just doesn't. Not that it's wrong. It just never felt comfortable to me. But because that was what I grew up in, I just sort of accepted it as a default, right? So when I went to Thailand, which is a country that is for the most part Buddhist, um, it was just really nice to be able to be introduced to a different way of living and looking at life. And my first visit to a Buddhist temple, I went to a 10-day Vipassana meditation retreat, which is really a beautiful experience. If you've never done one, I would suggest that you do. You don't have to necessarily go to Thailand. They have Vipassana meditation centers all over the planet. But basically, you spend 10 days in silent meditation. Um, and while I was there, I got to learn how to do meditation with monks, a local monk, a Thai monk. And also, I had a Vietnamese monk a woman monk or a nun while I was there. And one of the things that they taught me was how to prostrate or to bow before the Buddha, which was a really difficult thing for me to be able to do because as a Christian, um, you learn about not bowing before idols or not putting idols before God. And so that sort of there was like a tug of war in my heart about whether or not I should be there to participate in it, because you're always told that, when you do things that are against God, God is going to somehow strike you down and send you to hell. Whether or not the Bible actually says that or not is a different thing, but that was what I believed at the time. Um, and so I sort of had to work that out in my own head while I was there. And, the experience overall actually turned out to be um, life changing for me. Now I meditate all the time. I meditate every day for at least a half hour in the morning. And if I can, I'll do it also at night. Um, so yeah, you get travel for me has always been a really great way to provoke introspection about what it is that you believe. And that makes you a better writer. You have more to say. When I'm sure that we've all, as writers, have heard people say that when you tell stories, you don't necessarily tell the events. You have to be more descriptive about the events. What do things look like? What do things taste like? What do you hear? Um, to be able to bring your five senses into the story. And if you only have one perspective, it sort of makes it more difficult for you to be able to make your stories come alive and make people pay attention. So yeah, travel provokes introspection. And I'll give you a fourth one. Travel gives you a new perspective on your own culture. You start to ask questions like, who am I? Um, what are the stories about me that I want to be able to share with others? Stories about where you come from. Um, what part of that do you believe is significant about, you know, what it is that you want to tell other people about where it is that you come from? It's not always about, excuse me, I'm sorry, my voice is a mess today. Is storytelling is not always about the particular place that you're going to, but it's also about you and your background and how it is that you relate to your new culture, or even how you relate to yourself, to the place that you come from. So to give you an example, I didn't have an appreciation for my great grandmother's garden and the work that she put into it in the back of. She had a small garden in the back of her home. She grew freaking everything. I mean, she had the cabbages, the mustard greens, green beans, and all sorts of tomatoes. She had everything. She had an apple tree back there and all sorts of other stuff. I didn't have an appreciation for my great grandmother's garden until I went to Africa for the first time. I told you I was Peace Corps volunteer in my early 20s, and I went to Togo as an agricultural volunteer. How in the world that happened? I'm a chick from New Jersey. I don't know nothing about gardening besides watching my grandmother do it every summer and enjoying what it is that she grew. Um, but yeah, I didn't have a real appreciation for what it is, the work that she put into her work, into her garden, until I actually saw African people do the same thing when I was in Togo. They had a small garden next to their homes in village. I lived in a very small village. Um, no running water, no no electricity. Very simple living, dirt roads, very, very simple life. And I remember the stories of my great grandmother telling me how she learned how to do these things where she grew up in North Carolina. And so I started to I have not spent a lot of time in North Carolina, but I think I've gone a couple of times in my childhood. And the way that she would describe the dirt roads in North Carolina were very similar to what it is that I was living in when I was in Togo. And so I was able to connect um, my Africanness as an African American to my great grandmother in her garden and what I was living in Togo, which I didn't expect. You didn't expect those things. And those are the sorts of stories that you want to be able to share with people. So when you travel, you get a new perspective on your own culture, who you are, and where you come from. So, um, did I do the question? I totally skipped over the question of the day. What the question of the day is, what travel destination has had the biggest impact on your life? I'd be interested in knowing that. What travel destination has had the biggest impact on your life? So that's all that I have for today. Thank you so much for hanging out with me in this video. Um, if you would like some support in your freelance writing journey, and also making your business location independent, I'd be happy to help you. You can click on the link in the description box, or you can go to halanablack.com and click on freelance writer coaching, and you can set up an appointment there. So please like, share, and subscribe to this video. And I will check in with you tomorrow, Saturday. Peace.